Speaking of Sidney Crosby, let's finish it off with a little discussion that I thought of yesterday. And of course, as what always happens, the second you start to doubt Sidney Crosby, he goes and shoves it in your face. I put out this poll yesterday on our YouTube channel at Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Are you concerned about Sidney Crosby's lack of goal scoring? Going into last night, he had 12 goals. And what does he do? He redirects a shot for Matt Grzelcyk in Crosby fashion, immediately shuts down a question that I asked that questioned his ability. 70% said no. And I think whenever you see that, you say, all right, yeah, makes sense. That's an overwhelming majority. 30% said that they're concerned, though, which in my eyes, and again, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill here, but if 30% of the fan base is saying they're concerned with Sidney Crosby's goal scoring, that to me is more telling than the 70% that said no, because I think there's a large portion of the fan base that no matter what Crosby does, as long as he's above point per game, they're not going to worry about Sidney Crosby. But if 30% are sitting there saying, I mean, the guy has 13 goals, he's on pace to have his worst goal scoring season when it comes to goals per game average in his entire career. Does that concern you at all, Horwat?
I don't. It's tough because I think it would have in a normal season, absolutely. Because I mean, in a normal season, there was at least Jake Guentzel around to sort of fill the gap. There was not much else, though. It was, especially going into this year, I think we were all, at least I was, looking at Crosby as he needs to find that goal-scoring ability without Jake Guentzel there and without the Penguins going out and getting the quote-unquote replacement or at least another goal scorer for the lineup to sort of help fill the void.
Yeah,
everyone kind of leaned on Crosby at the end of the last season after Guentzel was traded, and he filled in the role pretty nicely. Michael Bunting actually helped quite a bit too. Drew O'Connor helped quite a bit. There was a couple of key names that did sort of add to the goal scoring. Going into this year, it was a kind of expected that Sid would take over that goal scoring run, and he hasn't, which again would concern me. But Rickard Rakell's playing darn well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not filling the same void that, Guentzel could, who, by the way, I believe is on a 40-goal pace.
Yeah.
Lovely. But it's better than having no one there. So I would be concerned, but with Rickard Rakell playing at a very, very high level to the point of the Penguins don't want to trade him this year. Again, watch out for the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
But during this 24-25 season, they plan on keeping him around. I think the concern level for Crosby goes down a bit, but I absolutely get where 30% of the people are coming from because he was expected to do more. Yeah,
I mean, both Rakell and Brian Rust are
yes,
filling the back of the net at a very, very good level. I mean, Rickard Rakell leads the team with 23 goals. Brian Rust is up to 19 goals. So once again, he's going to be flirting with that 30-goal mark this season. But the difference to me with Crosby is it's not like he's not trying to score goals, because leading into last night's game, he was tied for the team lead in shots on goal over the last 20 games. He had 56 shots over the last 20 games going into last night, and he only had 12 goals all season long. And like I mentioned, he's on pace to have his lowest goals per game season of his career, but that's by far. Going into last night's game, he was on pace to score 0.25 goals per game, finishing with just around 21 goals. That is so far below the line. If you look at the rest of his career, you can count on one hand how many times he was below 0.4, and he's going to finish at 0.25. I mean, you look at his lowest goal total seasons. He had 8 goals in 22 games in 2011-12. He had 15 goals in 36 games in 2012-13. He had 16 goals in 41 games played in 2019-20. And in all of those seasons, there was an excuse for him to be low in goals, specifically because he didn't play. In 2011-2012, he was dealing with his concussion/neck issues. In 2012-13, there was a lockout. So he only played in 36 of the 48 games, or no, there was only 36 games that season. So he only played in 36 games. And in 2019-20, he had a core muscle surgery that cost him the early portion of the season, and then the late part of the season was canceled due to COVID. So in all of these situations, there was either an injury or a lockout or a stoppage of play that caused him to score that low of goals. He hasn't missed a game this year, and he's on pace for 21. To me, there is a little bit of concern there. As much concern as you can have with a 37-year-old that is still on pace to have a point per game, a 37-year-old that is still leading your team in points, a 37-year-old that when he wants to can just turn it on and take over a game. I understand all of these points, but when you look at the big picture, he was, as he mentioned, Horwat, he was expected to elevate his goal scoring this year like he did last year when he finished with 42 because there was that void. Is Raquel helping fill that void? Yes, because he's scoring more than expected. Is Bryan Rust helping fill that void? Yes, if he continues on this pace because he's scoring more than expected. Is Anthony Beauvillier helping fill that void with 11 goals? Yes, because I don't think any of us expected him to finish around the 20-goal mark. That's kind of like a Danton Heinen bonus part right there. That's what you're getting. It's helping fill the void in other spots, but I think you still look at the Penguins and you say, man, what if Crosby was scoring goals just at a career average rate where he was on pace to finish with upwards of 25, 26 goals? What if Evgeni Malkin, who you could throw into this conversation, was scoring goals at his typical 20-plus goal rate? He's not. So maybe you have the conversation about Malkin too, but I think specifically when you look at Crosby, it's that first realization of this guy's human and this guy is trying to score goals and can't. And not often in his career has Sidney Crosby tried to do something and not been able to pull through. So I think it's that kind of that first moment of, hey, he's human. And we knew it. And I'm sure that there's a chance that over the final 33 games, he goes out and scores 20 goals and just shuts me right up because I put out a freaking poll and he scored 4 hours later. But I do think that I lean towards the 30% that said yes, saying, hey, there's something here. Whether it's something to be overly concerned about, I don't think we're there yet. But there is something to the fact that Sidney Crosby has not been able to kind of finish his opportunities this year the same way that he has throughout the remainder of his career.